So there's also a boy named David, who was adopted from Korea along with his twins and moved to Ohio, the best state there is in the Midwest.
The girl decided that she would go to college in northern Michigan, and she made many friends with me. But she was still very afraid. She hadn't quite grown that part of her relationship with God yet.
David also made a lot of friends, some pictured here, but obviously they're not all pictured. He's loved and adored by many.
Hannah decided she would go to more school. So she made the unfortunate mistake and also going to Ohio University, which there's worse options. But God made this a good thing. After all, He does work all things out for the good of those who love Him.
David turned 25 on August 16, 2021.
And Hannah moved to Ohio that same day. I had joked when Hannah moved that there was, quote unquote, some guy floating around down in Ohio this week. And he just didn't know it yet. Hannah started going to Brookfield Church. She wanted to join a small group, but so she emailed David and a number of other people about small groups. And this is artifacts that we have captured. These are the emails, the very first, if you would say, text conversation that these two had. So I'll just read it for you, so don't worry. Hannah. Hello, my name is Hannah. I came to Brookfield Church this Sunday for the first time, and I'm looking to get involved in a small group. I was hoping to check yours out this week. I just wanted to check in and make sure you were having it this week and that I had the address listed on the info card I picked up from the church was correct. Thank you, Hannah. And then David said, Hannah, I would love for you to come check it out. This won't be a small group this week since there will be several other welcoming events going on. But next Wednesday, we will be meeting at 6:30 at such and such Nottingham Drive. I am looking forward to meeting you. Let me know if you have any questions. My phone number is, no, I won't repeat the rest of it. Anyways, Exhibit A. Hannah attended David's small group. Then, she became extremely attracted to him. And fell in love with it. And David also just happens to be Korean. That works out very well. And Hannah decided food, no. And she left the small group for about a month because she was scared, but eventually she did come back. Okay. Something cool about Hannah is she has an intuition or discernment, whatever you want to call it. So when she meets someone who's going to be important in her life, a quote-unquote ding kind of goes off, sort of like a bell in the spirit. There's this quote, but with David, it was like a gong, and it shook my world. The relationship between Hannah's experience meeting other people for the first time versus David's for the first time. Here's a graph he made. The gray line down at the bottom is the other people, and the red is David. Hannah proceeded to tell me for the next 3 years, in detail every single interaction and exchange with David, including writing about these events in her thoughts and feelings in her journals.
Meanwhile, David. he took on the daring task of driving to Tennessee. Luckily, we didn't have to go all the way, but to pick up a dear friend of ours before the border shut for COVID. But he stayed oblivious to other things that were right in front of him. After that, it was clear David had a huge heart for helping other people, and made me question, is that why you wanted to become a doctor?
Yes.
But God had much more in store for David besides friends, church, and med school. He had something special for David. And I know David doesn't have the best sense of smell or any smell at all. He doesn't necessarily hear well out of his ears.
What?
I mean, sometimes it's questionable whether or not it's both. And he doesn't necessarily see them. And it made me wonder if that's why he didn't see his future wife standing right in front of him.
And after a lot of prayer and patience, David eventually asked Hannah out on Hannah and I's friend-versary. I don't know if you knew that, but I was a little bit mad. I took a picture of the day Hannah and I met. And their first kiss was October 3rd, aka Meet Girls Day. And their first date was on 9/11.
But thankfully, and Hannah was able to knock some sense in it.
As you can imagine, a lot happened in those journals. Hannah kept leading. That kept leading Hannah. Oh my goodness. As you can imagine, a lot happened in those journals. Hannah and David, leading up to Hannah and David dating. And I would like to fill in some of those holes. So, to finish this out for the night, okay. Before the bride and groom have their first dance, I was also asked to help introduce it. Hannah, are you ready to cry? Because I'm not. Yeah. So she has no idea that I did this. One of my favorite forms of creative expression is poetry. It's a gift God gave me, similar to the gift this poem describes. And don't worry, Hannah, I already have a copy printed for you. So you will get that once you come back from your honeymoon. All right, this I titled it "Bell in My Soul," and I would like to acknowledge that it is a story written by God but composed by me. From Hannah's point of view. To some, this may seem a stretch. To others, far-fetched. But this is my story, all the way true. A story that's telling as well. My walk was not easy, and my steps ever faltered, but I had no tripping stone on the way to God's altar. The place where I first heard the bell in my soul. A gift I received when I gave God control. Here's how it worked. A bell would chime to tell the time when I would find someone to walk beside. My life is full of bells. All of this is good and well. I found my people every time that I would hear my spirit chime. But there was a moment that gave me a start. It came from deep within my heart. I did not know what it could mean. At times I thought it only a dream. Enter David. We met as a small group through church, and I did not expect my heart to lurch. The moment I first laid eyes on you, I heard a gong instead of a bell, and my whole world turned upside down. It shook me to my very core, at times it even tore through my heart when I couldn't reach out to tell you all the love I felt. Remember this, the Lord seemed to say, and the inkling would not go away, that somehow you were special, more than the rest, but only God knew how in time was a test. And at that moment, I couldn't tell you that I had heard more than a bell, since you didn't know me, nor I you, but in my soul. For years we were friends. I wondered long to what end. Church on Sundays, small group on Wednesdays, dinners with friends, and outings to events. But never more than just friends. And life's tossing seas, you were there, offering advice and a listening ear. You guide and lead your friends in need, but you didn't know that I held you more dearly. After some time and some wounds were mended, I wondered if you could only be befriended. I almost stopped believing in a friends to lovers trope, but the Lord told me to hold on to hope. For years I trusted God to make my path straight. For better or for worse, He told me to wait. One step at a time, trust me with your heart. I knew whatever happened, He'd lead out of the dark. For years I knew the time was not right, for God would still be in moments of light. For years He was silently growing my faith. I knew He would care for me come away. Then one day, after a rental car situation, I felt a shift in what God was saying. I had the choice to open my heart and tell David everything I felt from the start. In May 24, we met to talk on a wall. My stomach was in knots. I made a phone call to the friend who's reading this now, and weaving the story that led to a vow. But the wall where we met, it was more of a fence. After I shared what my heart really meant, that whenever I asked you how I could pray, was my heart thinking back to that first day, where my spirit is startled and my soul sings along to the memory not of a bell, but the toll of a gong. 3 years, I said, was how long I'd like you. 3 years I've watched, prayed, and begged God to move. The shock on your face was a little surprise, but mostly you couldn't believe the time. 3 years since that day in church, when my heart suddenly decided to lurch. 3 years since we met at group, and my faith in God was thrown for a loop. When I heard a gong instead of a bell, my whole world turned upside down. Dear listeners, you may be thinking, sitting here thinking, that finally these characters will start moving. However, it is with a laugh I regret to inform, things took a little longer before David was torn. David liked Hannah, that was sure true. But as for group leader, he had one rule. Within the small group he led, he chose not to date, to shelter his flock, a quality trait. David left for more work in Columbus soon after, which left Hannah uncertain of what would come after. Before his travels, he left with this clue. I don't want to cause problems, but I care about you. Upon returning 1 month later, and Hannah praying now more than ever, they attended a church event at Stroud's, and Hannah believed things would soon turn around. Hannah sees David and says, "Hi," but instead, he walked right on by. David was trying to play it cool, but his insides were a whirlpool. The mixed signals were a little confusing. Hannah's heart was bruising. She asked David over to talk. Looking back now, it's all amusing. Little did we know that he had a plan in play. After church, he would ask her out on a date. But Hannah, wanting gone her dread, they met the very next day instead. Hannah brought to him her need for an answer. If it was a no, he needed to tell her. It had been 2 weeks since he had come home, and David had yet to make his intentions known. David asked her to dinner for later that week, to which Hannah accepted immediately. The following Wednesday, Hannah called me trying to decide whether to dress up or dress casually. I told her, wear the dress because you want to feel pretty. When you go on your first date with a man you marry. This became the dress that she wore, yellow, green, and white, when David would finally ask her to become his wife. From there, the rest is history, or should I say, his story. For here we are today enjoying the fruit of a woman who believed in God's truth. When she was reborn, God gave her a bell, and she requested this story I tell. God is faithful and shines in all of his glory to write for his children beautiful love stories. Hannah and David have selected the song, The Story I'll Tell by Maverick City Music, and Naomi Rain for their first dance. This song is reflective of their journeys and is deeply important to both of them. It became a heart song that got them both through the obstacles they were facing to get to this moment today. Above just celebrating their union, the bride and groom wanted to give thanks to and celebrate God for all he has brought them through. So here's Mr. and Mrs. David Hartman on their first dance. stands as husband and wife. Thank you, Jesus.